All right, we are about to have. Oh, there she is. Okay. Is she on? There she is. Hi.
Working. You can hear me, right?
Hold on. Yeah, I just gotta turn it up because the wind here is crazy.
It's okay.
And all right. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Awesome. It is so good to see you.
You too. How are you?
Good. So to all my viewers out there, this is the one and only my friend from high school, wonderful author now, Stephanie Ann Bruno.
Hi.
Um, and she has written this amazing book called The Recipe for Yellow. I know it's backwards, but that's okay. And it is an amazing book. I am actually reading it through for the third time.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. That's
It is so
so kind.
good. It is definitely a spring read, if you ask me. I like to start it in the spring, and even though it is a easy page turner, I like to take my time with it.
Yeah, thank
It's,
you.
it's just so full of like I get the feels every time I read it. I laughed, I cried. I'm in the middle of it right now, and I was crying so hard while my
Thank
students
you.
were napping. I was like, I can't cry right now. I can't cry right now.
I've been in that situation where you don't expect to be as emotional as you are about something, and you're like, why
Yes.
is it embarrassing? But it shouldn't be. I understand.
All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So how did you get this idea for this book? I know that you what's the word? Dedicated it. That's the word. You dedicated
Yes.
it to your Nona.
Yes.
Um, but did you have this idea for this book earlier on, like in high school, before that?
Yes, I had an idea that I wanted to take some of my real life experiences
Hmm.
living with my mom and my Nona, but
Hmm.
I didn't necessarily I didn't feel like I was in a place to write a memoir or write something that was just truly like my diary. I still love fiction writing and I read a lot of fiction.
Hmm.
So I was like, okay, I'm going to make this semi-autobiographical, but I'm also going to change this person's story.
Hmm.
And after I wrote it, when I was working with the woman who I used to help me edit the book, in a conversation with her, I was like, maybe a part of me was also writing this as if certain major events in my life were the opposite. So, like, I was like, if my great grandmother, for example,
Hmm.
never she passed away while she was still in Italy. Like, my family's Italian immigrants. She never got here. So, I was like, maybe I was kind of looking at this alternate universe where she was also here with us
Hmm.
and that my Nona lived longer and that I wasn't in the situation I was where I fell in love and got married and moved across the country and I was home longer than that. I was like, maybe I was kind of exploring like an alternate timeline when I was writing it. But as for actually starting to write it, I had the idea and I had a really chaotic notes app in my phone where I would think of like something I wanted to say or a moment that I thought would be good in a story, but I wasn't putting it together for years. It was just like a very chaotic notes app.
That is the symbol of the writer, my friend.
Yes,
Me
yeah. I
too.
was like, and then one day I was like, I should do it. And then we were in Seattle and I was working a job here and I got laid off. And I was like, okay, well, I need to figure this out now. And my husband, Michael, was like, why don't you just try and start writing the book? And then I started writing it. And honestly, that process went so much faster than I thought I would. Just like getting the entire draft down. I was
Just
like,
flowed.
yeah, okay. I was like, I've been wanting to write this, and I already had so many quips that I could just kind of put together. I'm still like, it still feels crazy that it happened, but yes, that would be my
It's
response.
insane when I saw that you had written a book, I was like, of course she did. Of course she did. It's
Thank you.
Stephanie freaking Bruno. Of course she did.
Thank you. Yep, it was in right in my tiny apartment when I was like, don't have a job right now, and I've always wanted to do this. So like, kind of like a moment where it comes to a crossroad where it's like, okay, what am I waiting for? Am I just always going to say, I want to write a book about this, or should I just
Hmm.
make it exist?
I love that. And I love that. I'm sorry, he will ever forever be sunshine to me.
Yeah, that's totally okay.
His
He's
name
said that
Michael. I
to
have
a
to say
lot of people.
sunshine. I
Yeah.
don't know if you know this. I don't know if I ever told you this, but me and my friends always thought, since you guys were a grade above me, even though I was like 2 years older than you guys, um,
It's okay.
we always thought like you guys were the couple goals.
Oh my God,
We were
thank you so
like,
much.
there's sunshine, there's smiley. We called you Sunny Smiles.
That's so sweet. Thank you so much. Yeah, he's upstairs right now, so honestly, he might pop in if he walks downstairs.
Oh, say hi, sunshine. And I know that you guys are like traveling all the time, and I I love that your dog sits on the stage or like takes a nap on the stage while he's
Yeah,
performing.
he's honestly so relaxed. If I can figure out real quick, if I can take this blur off, she's right next to me, but she maybe if I pick her up, she might be blurry, not be blurry, but she's right here.
Hello.
Let me see if I can.
Oh, aren't you
She's right next
precious?
to me. There she is. She's
And what
right
is her
next.
name?
Cannoli.
Oh, she looks like one.
Yes, she's always just very
Oh,
sleepy, chilling.
Bella.
And she has cataracts, so she can't see very well. So I
Oh, bless
always
her
say
heart.
she's like kind of the perfect creature to go on stage because I don't think she gets stage fright. I don't think she even knows there's that many people there or that
Oh my goodness.
she's just hanging
That's
out.
so cute. I love it. All right, so we're all the so you said the characters were some of them like the main character was I could definitely see you in Pia, by the way. I started seeing you as soon as I started reading it, and then um and then very quickly it shifted and I could actually see some of myself because she's in her mid 30s, I believe.
Yes,
Yes,
you're right.
in her mid 30s. And the first time I was reading it, I had just turned 30. And
I know that was approaching when I was writing it, and I feel like that for some reason is put in our brain to be like this huge catastrophic moment when it's like,
yes.
I'm
Hold on. Can I read a part from your book that doesn't
of
give away something?
course.
All right, hold on. I have it saved here if I can just get my finger in it. Okay. Okay. So it says, when I'm sluggishly pushing through days that feel like the saturation of all the colors in the world have been muted by the clouds, and I have no willingness to allow myself to feel joy, I feel like I have no more time. I know I have much more life left to live, but I mean real time spent truly alive. That whole I could read more, but that whole passage, I was like, that year it hit me. I had just quit a job that again, I fell in love with and I didn't want to leave. I love those kids, but I had no choice. Our family had to move. So, and for like 6 months, we were looking for a house. And with this market, it's just terrible. So
Yeah, near impossible. What
I
was the
was like,
job that you were leaving?
yeah, it was like I just turned 30. So far, I can't be with my friends. I have no job. It's like I felt it. I was like, oh,
Yes. And
that's me.
for us, I feel like it's also a huge part of it was the pandemic happening in our mid 20s, just kind
Yes.
of made time feel even more disillusioned. And then
Hmm.
being like, okay, well, that chunk of time was gone, but now I'm older. Do I go do things again, or do I just
Oh
have to
yeah.
move
I
on?
for
Very,
the first half, I was like, you know what? I have been working for long hours through the
yes.
whole year. And I am worn out. I need this break. That's a blessing.
Yeah.
So I was like sitting back, watching movies, catching up on stuff, writing stories. The
Yeah.
second half, I was like, I need to get out.
Yeah, I went through the same thing. It was like, oh, we're going to embrace it. And I remember in March or end of March, early April, when we were in Virginia and the governor came on and said, like, oh, this might last till June. Like, we recommend
Hmm.
you stay until June. I was like, oh my gosh, what do you mean until June? And now
I
looking back,
know.
like, oh, we thought it was going to be over in June. Like,
Yeah,
that would have
yeah,
been really short.
I
Felt like
know.
that was the end of the world.
I was like, I need if I can't get outside, I am starting a workout regimen.
Yeah.
I'm like cutting my hair short while, if I don't like it, then it's okay. I don't have to be around people. If I don't
Yeah.
like it, it'll grow out by the time we get back out, you
Yes,
know?
definitely.
Um, so for like the other characters, like Pia's best friends, How did you come up with them?
I knew I wanted to have like a buddy dynamic and
Hmm.
even like some of my favorite books and movies and like some of my favorite YA books like I read when I was younger when I started to really like reading. Like I feel like it was a rite of passage for like our age to just love like John Green books and like
Hmm.
those texts that had like these like strong best friendships. And
Yep.
I definitely pulled from my own life. And I think I didn't realize how much until I was rereading them. And then I was reading passages out loud to Michael. And there were certain things that like the characters I was writing would say. And he was like, "Oh, so like, were you writing about Tyler? Like Tyler
They're
Bar." I was like, "Oh,
hilarious.
kind of make it sound like Tyler." And then
It
I was,
did. It
yeah,
did. I didn't
I
even
was
put
like,
that
I
together.
know. I was like, maybe I kind of was. It was like a blend of a bunch of my guy friends. And then I would say something and he would laugh at like a scene of something that happened with Luca. And he was like, "So are you writing this about
Mhm.
Luke? Like Luke Clark?" I was like, "Oh, that does definitely feel like him." So I feel like even when I wasn't thinking with my conscious that I was writing about certain people, it was coming through. And then I put in little like for me and them little kind of, I don't think Easter egg would be the right term, but just kind
Mhm.
of to like real friends. So like I
Yes.
named his therapist Meredith and
Hmm.
tell one of my best friends, Meredith, until she read it. And I named like one of like the EMTs that's in part of the book very briefly, Jasmine. And I named them after like some of my real life friends. But
Hmm.
I really just wanted to like create a certain dynamic around her. And especially because I was focusing on a woman in her 30s who was single, who was with her grandparents and needed a balance of also like there are people in her life that are her age and like a
Hmm.
form of community.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Now that's all I can see is Tyler.
I know. It's like only a certain group of people that are from our hometown would ever understand this. So I'm sorry if that wasn't that relevant, but just
To the
just
viewers,
realizing, yes,
friends from high school and choir. So,
yes, just realizing like, oh, and then I was like, it's really beautiful that these people are such a part of me and like my psyche that when I wanted to write about friendship, I wrote about them, even if it
mhm.
was unintentional. So I thought that was really precious.
Okay, so all that being said, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Do you have a favorite character? Is there one that has a special place in your heart?
I feel like when I think of a character, that's a good question. For different reasons, I like different ones. But thinking of
Right.
their friends, I think I really like how I wrote Luca because he reminded me also of both of my brothers. I think I definitely wrote some of them into them as well. But I also think an underrated character that I put in there was Pia's mom, Lucy, just because she wasn't necessarily going through like the physical like catastrophes that other people
Hmm.
were or as like transformative of a moment arguably probably yes but just kind of being like this constant throughout the story and someone else that Pia knew was there and also like understood what was happening in the house more than anyone else. I
Hmm.
feel like that was like a pillar of things, so I would say
I,
one of them.
I love that. I love that these women are so sassy and
Yeah.
spunky and just, will just say what's on their minds.
Yeah.
Coming from an Italian family,
Yes.
we get it.
Saying what's on your mind. And I always remember like my Nona being like, you're gonna reach a certain age where like you just don't care about a filter as much because it doesn't matter like
Yep.
what people are thinking. You're just like, I'm old and I can say whatever I want.
Yep. Yep, absolutely. That is Italian familia. Absolutely. So how long did it take you to write this book? Like once you actually started like writing it?
Yes, once I actually started making it look like a book, which was just in a Google Doc at first,
Hmm.
I started early of 2020, the again pandemic brain of thinking of the years. It was early of 2023 and probably like winter time, I would say, like February. And then I finished, it took me a few months to finish like the first rough draft. So I finished in the spring. I think when I finished writing, like what I was like, okay, this is a story. It looks like a story. I know I still have stuff to do, but
Hmm.
this could exist as a story on its own. was probably like May. And then from May through November was me revisiting it and then hiring an editor who was a friend of a friend. It was one of the musicians Mikey plays with is our good friend Mateo. And I was talking to him about how I wrote a book and I don't really know the next steps because I'm figuring this out on my own. And he was
Yeah.
like,
Hmm.
my cousin is a book editor. Her name's Bree. You guys would get along. So she actually lives on the East Coast. She lives in Maine. And so we did it just like this. We edited my book over Google Meet.
Oh
So
no.
she would just pull it up and then like be like, I want you to look at this. So from May through November was just me like fine tuning it. And then also obviously just like life happening and having breaks where there would be like
Hmm.
sometimes where I didn't touch it and just kind of distance, which I think was also helpful because
Yeah,
then I could,
sometimes you have to just walk away so you
yes,
can get a
I'm
new
like, I need
perspective of
fresh
it.
eyes or I'm going nuts. So I would say like the end of November, I was like, okay, this is a final draft. And then um I worked with our friends who are in West Virginia, Brian and Val, and they have a like graphic design company called Big Fog. And I contacted them because I knew certain things I wanted to do to like format a cover and certain things I wanted on it. And
Hmm.
I worked with them for a couple of months. And then in January, on the 11th in 2024, I put it out. So honestly, from starting to write the rough draft to the book being out was a little less than a year, which in the grand scheme of things isn't that
That's
long. But
impressive.
that's like I said, the chaos and a lot of elements of it existed in my brain and in my notes app for a while.
Yeah.
So it wasn't coming from nothing, but to actually create it into a cohesive book took probably like 10 or 11 months.
Oh yeah, I completely understand. You should see my Word documents. I mean, because I'm that person who will be in a mood for a certain story and start writing, and it'll just flow, and then I will get writer's block and try to push through it, and then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, you know what? I'll take a break on that story. Let's try something completely different to,
Yeah.
just start the creative juices flowing, and then I won't be back into that story forever. And I'm like,
Yeah. And but which is also an awesome thing to do just to, like you said, get creative juices
mhm,
flowing. Try something else because then you might be like, oh wait, one day it's gonna click and you're gonna be like, I really like writing this one and then
yeah,
go. And then I think it's also just like the woe of someone who's creative, where as soon as you finish, you're like, okay, it's done. I
yeah,
need to do something else.
yeah.
It's over. Let me try something else.
Yeah. So how has the overall turnout for this story been? Because I think it's been over a year now that it's been out.
Yeah, it's been over a year. So I kind of went down a rabbit hole of just like in now the 2020s, like putting out a book, you
Hmm.
can be like on the search for a literary agent, but you're also at the mercy of, okay, I'm going to send it out to all these people.
Hmm.
If they read it, it might not be for another year. I might
Yeah.
be put in a pile that they're not going to read it for another year.
Yep.
Do I want to sit with this story and wait for like an unknown timeline if someone's even going to pick it up and then put it to a publisher and if they'll take it, or do I just want to at the end of it, I was like, I'm just gonna do this myself and then have a catalog. And if that comes one day, I just started on my own. I think I also, it really helped. I'll shout out Michael, my husband, again, because he is a musician who puts his own music out a lot of the time. And then
It's
that
so
helped him
good.
as, yeah, as he went on. He's like, you could just put it out yourself. Like, just having the resources of modern day of being like, okay, I'm gonna figure this out. And I put out myself in January, and then when I was in Virginia in the spring, did some book signings. And yeah, it's honestly been really fun. And we perform together at shows. So I'll bring my book to the merch tables. I have it up on it's at some local bookstores. I'm working on getting some in Seattle, and then it's on Amazon. And I wish I could, I understand why because of privacy reasons, but when I get a sale on Amazon that is just like to me random. I'm like, I want
Hmm.
to know what that is. Like, I want to know
Yeah.
where this person bought this from. Like, I want to say thank you, but it's just a number. So I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so cool that it's existing now and in people's hands that aren't just people I know, or
Hmm.
which is important. Those are arguably the most important people, but it feels different when it's like, oh, someone came across this and bought it that has no relation to me.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, and I'm so proud of you for writing it because no one else can write this story. It's your story, you know? God gave us all different pieces of his imagination, and you definitely that was amazing.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You're welcome. So, do you have future plans for another book?
I do. I think similar to what we were just talking about like living a chaotic Word or notes document.
Hmm.
I would love for the next thing I write to maybe not be as structured as a novel and kind of have a collection of things. And I think I would have started it earlier, just in personal life the last year, like Michael having brain surgery. And
Hmm.
we also moved, so I know you understand that that takes a lot of time and
Hmm.
just like different things. I have some of it, but I'm definitely not as far as I want to be, but also giving myself grace that I put out a book last year. But I really want to do something that's more of a collection of like different essays or poems or even kind of like journal type entries that I have and kind of putting something together that like is a cohesive chaos. I loved challenging myself to put together a novel, but I think it would be cool to just get out even more like I don't know if random's the right word, but kind of like random thoughts or things I want to explore that don't necessarily
Hmm.
fit just a novel format.
I like that. That sounds awesome. And yeah, I totally get it. I mean, the place I lived before when I was in high school just moved over 6 months ago, and I like 14 years of stuff. I am still unpacking. There's nothing on my walls. I'm
And
not
you don't
allowed to paint
realize
my walls yet.
you
So,
don't realize how much you have until you have to put it away or unpack it. And it's like,
girl, I even purged, and I'm like, I still
yeah,
have 14 years of stuff.
yeah.
I'm still unpacking boxes. But yeah, I know it was a crazy year for you. What would you say was the most memorable moment from this year?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. I should have reflected on this. The most memorable moment, um, I would say, such a good question. I would say one of them would be when we got back here. So like shortened version of when Michael found out he needed surgery and had to get it. We were in Virginia, but we live
Hmm.
in Seattle, Washington. So we ended up having this completely unplanned extended stay. So I
Hmm.
think when we finally got back here after like 6 weeks, when he was cleared to fly, and just like getting back into our space, our friends were thankfully amazing about watching cannoli and getting back into our space and like seeing our dog and just coming back into like our own apartment at the time and being like, okay, we're back. That
Hmm.
was crazy, but it's time to regroup and resettle was a really emotional but very memorable moment of, okay, we're back in this space, but everything has changed within us. And now we just need to like reroute. And then
Hmm.
we ended up moving from that apartment into our house like 2 months later. So it was just a lot back to back. It was
Oh,
a
I
but
know.
we're grateful for it because they all had good outcomes. So I would never
Yeah.
complain. But it was just,
Blessings in disguise.
yeah,
I love it. Okay. So, so if the audience wants to know more about you, more about your book, where can they go?
I would say definitely go to my Instagram, which is just my full name. So I don't have that creative of a username, but it's Stephanie and Bruno. And then I have an Instagram account I created for my book linked in my bio there. It's just called The
Hmm.
Rest Yellow, which I think in the future, when something else comes, we'll have to like readapt to just where I'm posting literature. But yeah, there's where I have everything. If you search on Amazon, The Recipe for Yellow by Stephanie and Bruno, you'll see it there. I also have my husband runs his record label, so it's
Hmm.
Geneva Records, and now my book is for sale directly on his website. So if you don't want to use Amazon or you just want it to come straight from me and I can sign the book for you, you can also order it on the Geneva Records website, and it's spelled Geneva.
Awesome.
So
And I will
yeah,
have you email me those links so I can put them down below. Um, well, it was so wonderful talking to
it
you.
was so fun. I know. I hope we can catch up more soon. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. You'll have to let me know when you're back on the East Coast.
Yes, totally. We'll be there in May for like a short period, but we'll be there in May and Mikey's playing a show in Winchester. So,
Oh, awesome. All right. Well, it was so good catching up with you. I miss you.
too, thank you so much.
God bless you. I'm so proud of you. The rest of you guys, you have to check out The Recipe for Yellow, such an amazing book.
Thank you so much.
Bye, Stephanie.